Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Ice Cave Radio. This is episode number 42. The crew is back together. You have been on one hell of a journey, Doa.
I've moved from Minnesota. Well, I moved from California to Minnesota, then from Minnesota to California again in less than 1 year, and had a baby, and among many other things. So it's been a year, but my PC stuff just finally arrived about an hour ago. I just put it all together, and it seems like it's working at the moment. I have nothing behind me because there's nothing on the wall. I only have one monitor, which is very strange, but everything appears to be working, so hopefully it stays that way for the duration of the episode at least. But it's good to be back.
The one monitor thing I think would tilt me the most. I've had to do that once, and
it's very strange.
It's kind of like going the whole day with one hand tied behind your back.
Yeah, it's like it's a big monitor, like it's a nice like slightly curved 32-inch monitor. So there's real estate on there, but I'm like, no, usually I have my documents over here and my like camera stuff here, and like, you know, so it's weird. It's weird. I got to get it all hooked up later, but the show was a priority, you know?
Yeah, well, we appreciate you being here again. This is a podcast about Star Wars Unlimited, the card game, but so much more. Just like you, Charmer, you're so much more than just a pretty face.
Wow.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that, because I was really starting to get worried that you only kept me around for my dashing good looks and were not realizing how cunning I am. I am the Lando of this crew, very clearly. Oh. I have the suave demeanor of one Donald Glover or Billy D, whichever you choose, which I can't even continue this with a straight face. That's just asinine. But I appreciate the compliment nonetheless. But you know what else I appreciate, Flake?
Oh, do tell, my friend.
The fact that we have a lot to talk about this week, because we got spoilers and teasers and all sorts of stuff again. And I'm really excited to talk about some of the cards that were revealed. But naturally, we also have to cover the cave poll of the week.
Yes, I'm keeping that in. Yes, the cave poll of the week, indeed. The first one in a while that all three of us can get our grubby little mitts on, which is fun. So, friends, every Sunday at Ice Cave Radio on Twitter, you can go ahead and participate in the cave poll of the week. I have been lobbied by several people within our Discord, join the Discord, by the way, saying that they don't actually have a Twitter or X account, so they've been giving some of their own opinion there. We'll try to find an alternative to get everybody part of it, but for now, the cave poll of the week this week was, without taking leaders into account, what aspect do you prioritize when starting a Star Wars Unlimited draft? Now, part of this I had to sort of clarify for some is that, all things considered, if you were guaranteed to be fed the color that you want, what would that color be? Obviously, cunning, command, vigilance, and aggression. And Doa, I'll start with you. When it comes to draft, because you are the most prolific limited player out of all three of us. You have
oh yeah, naturally, yeah, of course.
You have come around.
Nobody loves limited like I do. Yeah.
You have come around.
You're getting there.
I do like it. I do like it for this game. I like playing draft and sealed in unlimited. I like unlimited limited quite a bit. So yeah, I'll go first. Sure, why not? It's hard right now to not pick command because Overwhelming Barrage exists, and that's such an enormous card in terms of swinging games in a limited format. That said, I kind of like cunning, actually. I feel like cunning has a lot of really good units and cards that can be individually very impactful, whether it's something like a rare that you might find a little bit less often, like Fett's Fire Spray or something like that, or something a little bit more common, like a Waylay, right? Or Asteroid Sanctuary, or No Good to Me Dead. Like, there's lots of very good, I think, individually impactful cards at a fairly low cost and limited, and I feel like that incentivizes me to think cunning a lot. Also, I just think a lot of the cunning, leaders are pretty good. I think Thrawn is particularly good in limited, maybe even particularly good in constructed now with some of the decks and the results I've been seeing. Obviously, Boba Fett's great. So yeah, I mean, I know Command is a very popular and deservedly so choice, but I kind of still lean Cunning a little bit.
So first of all, virtual high five to you and I, Charmer, because we got Doa to start thinking limited and enjoying it.
I'm trying.
Which that's on us, buddy. That's a win for us.
I've taken my first step into a larger world.
Charmer, how about yourself?
This is really interesting for me. I'm the one who proposed the question this week, in part because I was attending my locals this past week, and I realized while I was drafting that before I'd even settled on a leader, because I had multiple leaders I could play, I was still drafting things of an aspect that was not within my leaders. And I kind of caught myself after the fact, and I was like, oh man, I wonder if, A, do I always do this, or am I just now noticing it now? But also, does anybody else do that? So I selected aggression because that is the aspect that I find myself drafting the most, in large part because I think that it has really strong commons. I do think that there are some great uncommons there as well. And obviously Overwhelming Barrage is like the uncommon in set one, and I fully agree with Doa there. But when I'm looking at some of the other uncommons, whether I'm on light side or dark side, you've got the Ruthless Raider or like a Sabine, and there are strong aggression uncommons as well. But for me, the real standouts are in the common slot, and specifically the stuff that is not tied to villainy or heroism, because I could point to like TIE Interceptor as another great common aggression card, but that's villainy. If I'm looking at stuff that's not locked, I look at like Jedha Agitator, which is just a solid 2-drop. Yeah, it doesn't have a lot of stats, but depending on when you deploy it and if you can get the activation with the leader, it's very often a nice 2-for-1. I look at cards like Open Fire, which, yes, there's other removal in the set. There's Strike True, etc. But Open Fire is just a very nice, clean way to deal with space units, and those kind of come at a premium, I'm finding, in Limited. That's really important. And again, when you go to some of the, heroism or villainy cards that you can include, I think cards like Guerrilla Attack Pod are fantastic. I think that the 3/1 Stormtrooper as a 1-drop is outstanding, even more so if you're playing Tarkin. So I'm drawn to aggression like as a base. And then I find that if I'm drafting leaders that already have aggression, then I feel like I have more freedom. But I feel like for whatever reason, whenever I'm playing, I kind of get sucked into aggression because there's just so many good quality commons to select there.
Hey, this is really fascinating because Doa picked Cunning, you picked Aggression. I went Vigilance on this one. I voted for Vigilance for a lot of the some similar reasons that you had mentioned, Charber, which was sometimes you just want clean aspects of removal, and Takedown and Vanquish are just premium cards to just get rid of particular problems. And that, if you're using the same kind of, the strategy of bread being like in terms of priority, which is bombs, removal, evasion, aggression, duds, then removal's the second one there. Obviously, I'm drafting the bombs, but like removal is a premium piece. And in red, you're getting Open Fire or things like that. But I just like clean answers. I just like to point, click, delete, and that for me is Takedown, and that for me is Vanquish. And then we could figure it out there. There's still some okay low to the ground 2 or 3 drops, such as Wilderness Fighter, I believe. There's the Scout Bike Trooper. There's Death Trooper as well. There's options there, and I like those to have those to go. But also, a lot of the bigger end game bombs, as they were, like those end game threats, come in blue, such as maybe some of the walkers are blue related. Same thing with some of the bigger space units. But then again, Patrol Craft, a 3/4 Sentinel in space, is a pretty nasty piece to deal with. So I took Vigilance, also because Restore is pretty heavily packed into that color. I think that's
true.
Fascinating enough. Let's get to the results. Command. So a 4-pack of options here. We all selected the non-winning one, but you're right, Doa, because you kind of called it from the beginning that Command is probably going to take it. Command is likely the strongest support color within the game right now. But Command wins the day with 31%. In second place, Aggression at 24.1. 23.3 is Cunning in third, and last is the one I selected at 21.6. But all down the line here, it's a fairly close race for all four of these.
Pretty even distribution across everything. Another thing I think that's worth mentioning with Command is that's where the ramp is too. Which, I mean, if you can ramp in a given limited, you're way ahead, right? So I think that's part of it too. And you've just got a bunch of quality commons and uncommons there as well outside of OB but yeah, I think more than anything, this shows that I think you can legit draft any color focus you really want to, I think, in Unlimited right now, and you're in a pretty good spot as long as you find the right cards and you pair with the right leader, right, and ultimately that you play those cards well. But I think you can make strong arguments for every single aspect right now, which is very cool. And another reason why I'm okay with limited in this game, because it's not like, oh, well, I didn't get this one specific card or something like that, and this person did, so it's just how it is. You can have like bad sealed pools like you can in any other card game, but I feel like it's much harder for that to happen in Unlimited than other games I've tried limited in the past. So yeah, that's cool. Neat to see these results.
So there it is. Again, every week, the Cave Poll on Twitter at Ice Cave Radio. You can discuss the Cave Poll on our Discord channel. Link is in the description here. We did get some headlines. It's been a while since we had stuff of real, actual, crazy substance, but this kind of brings us back to, several months ago when the headlines were basically what we're going to see here, which is, for the one, spoilers, which is awesome. It's great to see spoilers, boys, and let's talk about it, because set 2, this kind of hit us out of nowhere. We knew more or less the name. We knew that it was going to be Moff Gideon, it was going to be the Mandalorian as your leaders, but we got more than we bargained for, frankly, as we got a pretty decent headline segment for us this time around.
I am shocked. Like, we kind of talked about it, I think, on the last episode when we thought we would start seeing the new round of spoilers, and I think you and I had kind of felt like it wasn't going to be until maybe early May or so, and then we just got a fistful.
Yeah, we had kind of said like 2 or 3, I think, is for April, and then it would start ramping up in May. That was what we kind of predicted.
Well, I mean, they said too, like when they did this stream, they were like, all right, this doesn't mean that spoiler season has begun. We're just giving you like a little preview. So I think it seems like it's still going to be a bit of a gap before we really start getting flooded with new cards to talk about. But it was neat to sort of get this like big dose of what to expect. And obviously the intent of this was to talk about the theme and some of the new mechanics, not all of them. Smuggle was teased, but we don't exactly know how it works yet. But we know, a little bit more about, what's coming thematically in this, which is very cool. I love it. It's underworld and fringe stuff and Mandalorians, which is great. That's very neat, and I would say cohesive factions, because everything kind of exists outside the two bigger systems of rebellion or republic and empire, or first order, I guess too, you can say.
A lot of these spoilers here, and we've got some of the artwork up here on the video as well. It's just what I like about that little stream that they had the other day it's kind of like they took the puzzle pieces and did like a lot of the framework. It's like you don't know what the picture is yet, but you know the boundaries of where we're trying to do here. Of which is, like you said, a little bit of outlaw. We saw. Like cruising through some of the artwork that we saw on the stream, the outer rim, the villagers that are affected by the crime, and a little bit of that, some of the more fringe characters, but then some of the not so fringe characters. Like we've got Lando Calrissian, young Lando, Danny Glover's version of Lando, which I thought was a great iteration of Lando in my opinion. But ultimately, of these that popped up, which for you has inspired, I suppose, the most imagination or the best response, Charmer? I mean, you've got the armorer in there, so you got some Mando stuff.
Yeah, I like the armorer, especially because you'll notice when we start talking about the card reveals, it feels like this set is also going to really focus on upgrades, both things that you play on your opponent's units, but then also potentially your own as well. So including somebody like the armorer, natural, inclusion. But the one that really jumps out to me is actually the like syndicate thug. It's just the, you know, faceless dude holding the rifle. And the reason that one jumped out to me is I've said this before. I really liked the Rathtars because my kids loved them.
Oh,
And I kind of hope that means we're going to get a Rathtar card.
Guavian Death Gang member.
Eat
That's
some people.
That's what that is. Yeah.
Well,
I saw that, and there's nothing from the original trilogy in this in any of these reveals. By the way, it's all, I want to say extended universe, but that's not the right term anymore. Is it kind of the extended? I feel like anything beyond the you know, core stuff, the prequels in the original trilogy now for me is extended universe. But yeah, it's all from Mandalorian or the sequel films, or, you know, the Star Wars, what do they call those, Tales or something like that, the standalone ones, Rogue One and Solo we've had so far.
I'm not sure what those are called. I think like the episodes 1 through 9 are called the Skywalker Saga. So I don't know if that's, but yeah, outside of the episodic movies, I suppose you're right. What's cool about this dude holding the gun here is that his helmet, or her helmet, or its helmet, I have no clue what's in there, but ultimately it's got the helmet of a third or fourth generation Power Ranger squad. Like the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers were, you know, had their Zords and like they had their helmets, and eventually they had to do stuff to sort of differentiate the new generations and the different types. There's like Strike Force Neo and stuff like that, and all kinds of weird names for them, like time travelers and stuff, but they all had weird helmets. Some of them were awful. Some of them are like, how the hell do you see through this? I don't understand the concept of the helmet here. But then again, I don't know where the eyes are on the thing behind this. So maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. As a humanoid type creature behind this, maybe it's got eyes and a giant ring like that. What do I know? I don't know.
I'm trying to find the name of that one guy who's he's kind of Myron Fennec Shand there. It looks like, because that's who the person he's going after is. But, you know, he's kind of looking at her like, you know, I feel like there's some affection there. I feel like there's romance in that gaze, you know.
He's kind of doing,
remember his character's
name. Romance with that bounty. Like he's like, credits.
Oh, it was the Gunslinger, season 1, episode 5, and that character was Toro Calican. He died in that episode, by the way. Spoiler alert. Sorry.
Spoiler alert. But, after the spoiler is dropped.
He had to die to prove how cool Fennec Shand was, I guess.
Hey, someone's got to do it, right? Dressed like he's ready to audition to be the 6th Backstreet Boy, but it's still okay.
Hey. Did you know that in that episode, I opened up on IMDb, in that episode, Mark Hamill apparently does the voice of a droid called EV-99, which is an uncredited appearance by him. He apparently does a droid voice in that episode.
Really?
Well, who knew? Hey, there you go. This is why you watch the show or listen to it, right?
Nice.
The facts that you get.
Look at this informative programming that we've got going on here. All right, so that's some of the artwork to look forward to. We don't know what these cards will actually be, but some of the cards that we do know are coming around the bend. I do want to show everybody first, we are going to get 2 new iterations of the tokens, be it Experience and Shield, both of which feature Din Djarin the Mandalorian. All right, spoiler time. We're back at it. Spoiler time.
It's been a while. I'm excited. I always enjoyed doing spoilers, so I'm glad we've got some spoilers to talk about again.
We got a chunk here, so we're going to get through them. That's what our episode is going to be about today. I know that we spoiled a little bit last week within the Discord that we're looking to do an episode about what to expect, how to prepare for a tournament or an event. We will get back to that. This kind of hit us, blindsided us a little bit, but we are very happily going to dive into some spoilers again. Major thanks to SwooDB and our boy Parker at SwooDB for having this up in a heartbeat. So thank you kindly for that. Who wants to break the ice on this one? I don't know if anybody has a particular favorite that they have that they want to do, but anybody want to take the first crack at it?
I do have a favorite that I want to do because I'm gushing over the card. So when we get to not this first reveal, but his ride, I want to talk about his ride quite a bit.
Okay.
Well, I can do the first one if you want to.
Sure.
Because I really like this character. The first one I'm gonna do is none other than Moff Gideon himself, the big bad of The Mandalorian. And he comes in as a command villainy leader, which seems appropriate. He's very much in that command villainy vein when we see him in the Mandalorian TV show. His leader ability is use him as an action. Attack with a unit that costs 3 or less. If it's attacking a unit, it gets +1/+0 for this attack. So it lets you trade a little bit more efficiently with your units on the ground. Again, on the video where they revealed this for Fantasy Flight, they were talking about the swarm idea with the way to build this deck. A lot of troopers, a lot of things. Be very much in theme with his character. But this basically is just there to help you trade a little bit more efficiently. But his flip side is where I think it gets interesting, because you flip him, he's a 3/6, he's got Overwhelm, and then each friendly unit that costs 3 or less gets +1/+0 and gets Overwhelm now while attacking enemy units. So not only does it let you continue to trade and ideally play a very unit versus unit board control game, you're going to be getting little bits of chip damage in there over and over again when theoretically your units are taking out their units. So I think it's really neat. I think it's going to be a really fun leader to play. He's going to let you get theoretically a lot of stuff on the board. Control the board with units rather than with events and things like that, and then gradually overwhelm your opponent. Ping them down until they've got nothing less left, and then kind of finish them off. So it sounds like a fun swarm gameplay sort of style. It sounds a little bit more on the aggressive side, which is neat. So yeah, I think for a starter leader, right? He's in one of these are our two starter deck leaders for the set that we're looking at that they've revealed. So I think he'll be a good one that will fill kind of a fun, aggressive, accessible kind of role for people getting into the game. So yeah, I'm excited. Should be fun.
I think that when you mentioned aggressive, like it's an aggressive leader, I think that the first thing that popped into my mind, and Charmer, you probably maybe feel the same way, is that this feels like it should be paired with aggression, because part of the game text on this is a lot of it is when you're attacking with a unit that costs 3 or less, so it gains Overwhelm. A lot of the units that are 3 or less are going to probably have total stats combined of around 5 to 6, I would say. So in order to get the value off the Overwhelm, they have to be very front-loaded on the attack value part, and most of those are going to come in the red category, where you're right, you're talking about board control from a unit trading perspective, but if you're able to sort of give them change on it, like provide change with the Overwhelm ability, you need to have like a 3/1 Stormtrooper for 1 that you can buff up. The way that I see Moff Gideon is that you pair it with aggression and you play it with a lot of cheap dudes that you buff up, that you give them a lot of upgrades so that they can get Overwhelm, but also be bigger than, they're punching above their weight to that degree.
Yeah, I think you'll need to find a way to, obviously protect Moff Gideon once he comes out as well. I'm trying to remember. I think they said that both starters are paired with Vigilance, if I remember right. I might just be imagining that, but I feel like I remember them talking about that. But
yes,
I thought so. Is that right? Yeah.
It is correct.
Okay.
We know because some of the cards that were revealed that have the starter symbol for both sides have
obviously.
Vigilance.
Yeah.
So
okay. So we know that, which is good for this deck in terms of protecting Moff Gideon, because Vigilance has a lot of that kind of thing. That said, I like Flake's idea of pairing aggression with this, especially for another reason that wasn't mentioned, and that aggression is where card draw is to a certain extent as well. And if you're playing a lot of cheap units, you're going to be running out of hand a lot, even with drawing 2 each turn. So I think having ways of replenishing your hand is going to be very important with Moff Gideon as well, if you're going to play that more aggressive style with him. So yeah, I think aggression would be fun.
I actually really like Vigilance as a pairing.
Oh, come on, man.
Of course you do.
I do. and I hope that we get some more support in the starter for what immediately came to my mind, which is one, typically when I'm looking at his leader ability, right, it helps you to trade up. So a lot of times you want things that are maybe understated on attack. And Vigilance has a lot of those units where it's like low attack, high health. And so I think you get more benefit. Whereas if you're pairing with aggression, for example, right, the 3/1 Stormtrooper trades really well with most early units. Like, yeah, you could maybe give him the +1 and trade into like a 3/4/3 drop or something, but for the most part, he's already going to do his job. You don't need the Moff Gideon part. But if you take Moff Gideon and you pair him with like a bike, like the Scout Bike Trooper, right? Suddenly going from 1 attack to 2 is a much bigger deal, and you get grit. Now, the grit stuff that's in Vigilance is also where I think it shines, because when you deploy Gideon and he's granting your stuff overwhelm, that Scout Bike Trooper is suddenly a lot more dangerous when he's at his, 3/1, 4/1 or whatever body, and he's getting overwhelm on top of it. So I really like the grit side of Vigilance potentially pairing with Moff Gideon, and then using, like I said, his leader ability before he's deployed to help make up for the fact that a lot of your grit units have high health but low early attack. And so you can kind of shore up your deck's weakness in some instances, and then you get the payoff of, okay, all that stuff after I've made my value trades, now I can roll right over your units and get a bunch of incidental damage as well.
Is this revenge, Charmer, for when Doa and I said that aggression and Palpatine don't mix, and you're like, no, it does, and now we agree on aggression to mix in with villainy and command, and you're like, no, it was Vigilance all along. Like,
I never said it didn't mix. I just thought that Vigilance would be better, and I still think Vigilance with Palpatine is the best version of Palpatine. It's just you need red to handle the Sabines right now, but down the line, I guarantee you, it's still going to be Vigilance.
All right,
I'd say that, but I think sure, Charmer's going the obvious route. Of course, Vigilance is going to be good. Of course it is. But I'm more of a theory crafter. I'm more of a brainstorming kind of. I'm thinking ahead. I'm thinking into the far and distant future. Once we've got more reveals, I guess, and then I can build something.
I mean, then it's going to be double command.
Oh, that would be. I'm all for that.
Screw it. Go no base. Neutral base. Neutral 35 health base. That's what I want to do.
That would be neat.
That would be neat. I think a neutral 35 point base, I think, is maybe, it might be OP, honestly. I think that the extra health, there's probably certain cards where you're like, you know what, I can get away with just Vigilance, villainy, or just.
I think it would be problematic for Twin Suns.
Maybe. We're not thinking Twin Suns. Though we should maybe.
See, I'm like Doa. I'm thinking way into the future. I'm playing 4D Sabak over here. All right.
We have to be seers so that when we're right, eventually people can be like, oh yeah, they were right. And when we're wrong, we can just be like, yeah, well, it's just making predictions, guys. We're not expecting to be right.
Isn't Sears closed?
No.
Sears? No, there's still Sears around.
There's like
We're talking about the clothing store now, yeah.
You meant
they exist.
Oh, I was like, what are you talking about, Sears? And then Sears, like seeing the. I'm an idiot. Never mind. Don't worry about it. Okay.
Wow.
Let's just go to the next card, which is the Mandalorian.
Wait, by the way, have either of you played any Twin Suns yet?
Not yet. No.
Hold on. Okay, because I have actually, and it's extremely fun.
Oh yeah,
I made 4 decks to play with like my brother and a couple friends in Minnesota before I left, and every game was like super close. It was great. It was a really good time. So having finally played some games of Twin Suns, absolutely go build a deck and play some Twin Suns. Anyway,
why?
I digress. On to the Mandalorian.
I was gonna say, why don't you guys live closer to me? Like, why don't we all let's just get a house together?
Farther away from both of you than ever now.
That is true. You actually took the opposite approach. You said, screw these nerds.
Yeah. I got to get away.
All right, the Mandalorian. So the Mandalorian is a heroism, cunning leader, sworn to the creed. This is the way. And the Mandalorian is a bounty hunter, says, when you play an upgrade, you may exhaust this leader. If you do, exhaust an enemy unit with 4 or less remaining hit points. It transforms. The epic action is if you control 6 or more resources, it comes in as a 4/7 Mandalorian bounty hunter. When you play an upgrade, you may exhaust an enemy unit of 6 or less remaining HP. This definitely feels very Voltron Control, where I'm going to beat the living daylights out of you with like 1 or 2 units, and then I'm just going to basically run the table by annoying you, exhausting you, bouncing you, The fact that the Mandalorian is within cunning makes a lot of sense for this, obviously, because of the funky little doodads and bounties and all this other stuff, and just the way I'm envisioning this early on is that the Mandalorian coming out at 6 is, once you get to that point, you should have basically, you should be saying, all right, Mandalorian's here, and now none of your stuff is gonna ever do anything.
Yeah, I like that it pairs well with the existing cunning stuff that's already out there in the sort of bounty hunter vibe, right? And there's another card that they revealed too that works with this, because and I'll just briefly mention, even though we'll go over more in depth, but there's bounties now, right? So you can put upgrades on your opponent's characters with the purpose of killing them and receiving the bounties. So he has a really neat interaction, the Mandalorian, where you play a bounty on one of your opponent's units. Then you exhaust him, exhaust that unit, and then remember Boba Fett in set 1, how if he attacks a unit that is exhausted but wasn't played this turn, he gets to do an extra 3 damage to it. Now Boba Fett, who's out there, can come in and help you collect the bounties too. So it fits in with the existing bounty hunty stuff. Bounty hunty?
The bounty hunty.
Yeah.
It's kind of bounty hunty.
He's a bounty hunty.
Bounty hunty. It's it works with that stuff. Hey man, I'm tired.
No,
it
I
works
don't
with that
blame you.
stuff. And I love the synergy that we're seeing some cross synergy set now between the bounty hunties.
Charmer, you can now tell us we're wrong.
No, I think that all of that stuff is awesome and it makes sense. I'm already kind of having nightmares because right now some would say that the current meta is being dominated by cunning and command paired with a bounty hunter. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, oh man, if the Mandalorian comes out and you pair this with command, suddenly traitorous is a heck of a turn, right? Like you have initiative, you start with I deploy the Mandalorian, and if they don't have an immediate answer, then you traitorous one unit and tap down their other unit and they're just done for the turn. And it is a huge swing in potential tempo. So that's just with existing cards. Again, Doa's kind of already hinted there are new upgrades coming. I suspect that's just going to be the teaser. So the Mandalorian does, much like you were saying, Flake, feel like a bit of a thorn in your side. Like once he comes down, he's going to make it so difficult for the opponent to do anything. But what I really like flavor-wise is that this is almost like the heroism version of Thrawn. Because Thrawn has that same feel to me where when you're playing him, like a cunning control, he can tap things down, he can be disruptive. Mandalorian, I think, is going to have a very similar play style.
Look, you mentioned traitorous, and early on when the game launched, a lot of the deck lists that ran command would have like a single traitorous in the list. Then I saw like a single traitorous with like maybe 1 or 2 in the sideboard. Then it was like 2 main board, 1 sideboard. Now I'm seeing a lot of lists are just, we're rolling 3. Like it's 3 traitorous no matter what. And, call that a consequence of the fact that, low to the ground like Sabine decks or Fett decks are pretty strong.
I was just going to say, it's a great answer for Boba Fett. When you have the initiative and you can just steal their Boba and then run him into one of their other units, it's such a big deal.
It is, and it's going to be even worse, like you said, with the Mandalorian. So what a great everything, frankly. I mean, I think that these 2 first heroes seem pretty strong. Looking forward to it. A nice opening salvo for what set 2 is going to be.
If these are the starter leaders, what are we going to see in the actual set? That's what I'm wondering now, because this is already a bit pretty spicy in my opinion. So it's exciting stuff.
All right, well, Charmer, we'll save the one that you wanted for you, but you can get the next one.
This next one is one that I really like the art for, but I also just really like the card in general. It is Calculated Lethality. This is a 4-cost tactic. It's an event that is in Villainy and Vigilance. It says defeat a non-leader unit that costs 3 or less. For each upgrade that was on that unit, give an experience token to a friendly unit. So again, an emphasis with this set potentially on upgrades. I love this interaction where you get to destroy a unit, but the more they have piled onto it, or perhaps that you have piled onto it, depending on how the upgrades go, the more payoff you get as well. So it really is calculated lethality, where you're calculating exactly how big you can make something jump up in stats, because that's the real, to me, big payoff for this, right? Is that if you can catch something with 2 or 3 upgrades on it, you have initiative and you nuke their unit, but then you also get a big buff that maybe your opponent wasn't immediately expecting on one of your key units, or you keep something alive, or you're just getting the extra damage in for the win. All of those things make this card very scary.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good sideboard card, right? Unless the bounty thing really is a big thing in decks that use vigilance, I suppose you can kind of try to arrange it. But I feel like this is going to be a sideboard card where it's like, okay, I know between my deck and their deck, there's going to be a lot of stuff with upgrades on it. I'm going to be able to put this into use, because it is, if you compare it with Takedown, obviously it's a little bit more limited in terms of, what it has the capability to kill as easily. So you really want to make sure you're getting that experience token bonus when you're playing this card. And so I think that's going to take some, pretty good awareness of what's in your opponent deck, or your opponent's decks, what's in your deck. And to me, this says probably sideboard, but a good sideboard card.
What I like about this card is that Magic the Gathering guys always had a myriad of different removals that have different criteria, be it color related. The cost related ones oftentimes were the best, because sometimes there are just creatures or in this case units that are built around, that grow, and if you're holding on to a removal that deals with direct damage or that deals with combined stats, like I'm thinking about the card Cut Down, which is combined health and attack of 5 or less, you can just defeat that unit. Sometimes if you're putting a 2 or 3 drop and it gets bigger and bigger, you can't just kill it with, let's say, you can't kill it with Takedown, or you can't kill it with direct damage. That's why just looking at the cost, that static number, is great. But this also is in my opinion, when your opponent traitoresses you, this is such a good response, because you just kill the unit that they stole, and then you get the refund of the experience token on something that you already have.
There is that interaction. The other big thing that I wanted to point out, because I do think Doa hit the nail on the head, right? It's not, I think, as good as Takedown, because Takedown can hit leaders. Like, that's the big appeal of Takedown. But what this card does, and why I think this card is so important, is that Takedown is great, and you usually want to use it for leaders. But then if your opponent plays that early 3-drop Boba Fett, and you're sitting in your Takedown, and you're handed with that, Sophie's choice, if you will, of, do I get rid of the Boba Fett or do I wait for the leader Boba Fett sort of thing? Like, this is just another tool in your arsenal where if you're running both, you can just be like, hey, this is my Boba Fett killer, right? Or if you're somebody who is running Vigilance but not with Command, and you would have loved to have run Traitorous but you can't, well, this might be a viable alternative just to deal with those pesky 3-drops, like what Flake is saying. So I just like the existence of this card, because it provides Vigilance with something that it was kind of missing in that middle of the road, because I've played a decent amount of Vigilance, and Make an Opening is great. I'm a big fan of that card, but it only deals with small things in size. Takedown, you traditionally want to try to save for your leaders. Vanquish, if it's not killing a 5-drop or bigger, just usually feels bad. And so this kind of fills that middle road. So it might not be like an automatic 3 of, but I do think that this will find a home in some capacity after it's released.
Oh, totally. I mean, if you have to think about running into decks that like to shield units a lot, right? Think about like Luke Skywalker. I mean, shield tokens are upgrades, so this would, work on that too. Luke gives something a shield, then you kill it, and you get an experience token for one of your units from it too. So, yeah, I think it'll find a lot of use for sure.
Dude, the amount of times that somebody would drop like a green Squadron A-Wing and then slam like a wing leader on it and do
experience tokens are also upgrades.
Yes.
Imagine playing this with Tarkin, right? Yes. And you're staring down your opponent, and you turn 1 to TIE Fighter, and your opponent just couldn't deal with it, so it's got like 4 or 5 experience tokens on it. And then your opponent says, like, I take the initiative. You swing with your TIE Fighter, then you blow up your own TIE Fighter. This basically transfers the experience tokens over. So this could also be, if you used on your own units, if you're stacking experience tokens, this could be a way to deal out an additional huge sum of damage on certain turns as well.
Dude,
You're right. You could kill something with the experience tokens, move them over to another unit that's ready, then attack with that. So you could theoretically get multiple attacks out of the same experience tokens. Oh,
yeah, no,
I like that.
That would literally
that's
be
devious.
a calculated lethality for
That
your
is very
opponent.
calculated. Yeah.
And I love it. I love everything about that
Ooh.
now.
dude, that's great. It's like
I like that.
that one TIE fighter that swings in for like 7, and then you have another doofus waiting there that hasn't had any attention, no love at the ball, and then you
Your
use,
opponent thinks they're safe.
and then
So they're like, I take the initiative.
and then oopsie, calculated lethality. I'm going to sacrifice this nerd, put all of his hats on this guy, and then this guy's going to the ball. All glitz and glass. I was thinking of it from the perspective of if you play traitorous, let's say you're playing black, blue, green, and you go ahead and you steal your opponent's, obviously you're going to steal their DJ Death Star because that's what you do. You traitorous their DJ Death Star, and the other turn is that you just kill it with your own thing. If you can't attack it into anything, you kill it with calculated lethality. It's got an upgrade, so you're putting an experience token on something else. Dude, I love it.
I mean, now to be fair, your opponent would get a chance to respond to this, right? They would get an action between you using this on one of your things and then being able to attack with the next one. So you're still vulnerable to things like waylay, vanquish, all that kind of stuff, right? So there is counterplay, but I love the idea of being able to do that, though. That is cool. Yeah.
In a world of upgrades, waylay is the best card in the game. That is fact.
I would also just like to point out the card that I still think is kind of slept on that I've been a big proponent of is aggression. And in a world of upgrades, aggression has a lot of versatility as well. It was already a good card. And as somebody who's tried quite a few different double red builds of various leaders at this point, I'm excited because I think this set might make it shine, because I think people forget that it has the upgrade part as part of the choices because it hasn't mattered a lot in set 1, but it's a pretty big deal.
All those.
Well, there's the 2-cost red card as well that removes all upgrades.
Power failure.
Power failure, yeah. So there's some good anti-upgrade stuff in set 1 already. So it's there'll be counterplay, which is good. Disabling Fang Fighter is another one, I suppose.
Stocks, baby. Stocks. Yep. All right, let's go to the next one. Doa, you want to tackle the next one, or do you want the one after that?
I'll do this next one because I did Moff Gideon, so this makes sense that I cover this card too. So it's the Phase 3 Dark Trooper, cost 3, command villainy. It's a 3/3 with Sentinel. Sound familiar? Yeah, it does sound like Cell Block Guard. That's true. But when combat damage is dealt to this unit, give an experience token to this unit. So as long as it lives through the combat, it comes out the other side with an experience token, which is a very cool ability to put on something with Sentinel, because that's something that your opponents are going to theoretically then have to attack into again, take more damage. So you can see how this can become a snowballing problem for your opponent if they can't take it out in one fell swoop to begin with. And I just want to say now, some people might see this like, oh, just better Cell Block Guard. Power creep. Oh no. It's like, no, that's not the case here, because this is restricted to command, whereas Cell Block Guard is just villainy. So whenever you have a little bit more of a restriction placed on the card as far as deck building goes, you then have more real estate to give that card a little bit more stuff text-wise. So that's what we have going on here. So I think it's just a really neat alternative to that, or you can just put both in if you really want a ton of blocking in your deck, which actually with Moff Gideon, you want to keep him safe, you probably do. But I think it's a neat addition to that, to the Sentinel repertoire that Villainy has right now. It's really cool. I like this card a lot.
Well, if there's any card that Calculated Lethality probably wants to hunt for, it might be this one. But this is a card I feel that Tarkin really, really wants, because if it's very much a situation where if you don't, it's a lit fuse. If you don't address it immediately, it's going to blow up in your face, because let's say you drop this and then you can't deal with it, and then suddenly Tarkin puts an experience point on it. The Dark Trooper makes a trade against something that can't kill it. Suddenly it gets even better and better, and then it becomes a bigger problem as it continues. And then you can't kill it with, takedown, or you can't kill it with open fire because it's too fat already. I don't think that this card is particularly a problem. I don't think that this is one of those cards that get printed in certain games where it's like it's like a must address on the turn it's dropped, or you lose the game. That's nowhere near the stratosphere of where I think that this card's floor is. But I think that ceiling can be pretty high. I think the floor is low, but the ceiling is high, which leaves a lot of latitude for this card to do some funky stuff. Anytime that it can just self-improve based like off the board without having to pay for other things, I think that inherently adds value to the card.
Oh yeah, totally.
What I really like about this card is that it does a great job of preying on the weak. So scenarios where this might look benign, and I will 100% understand the comparisons to Cell Block Guard for obvious reasons, but where this card would shine would be like if your opponent is playing some sort of aggressive Sabine list and they have like a Benthic 2 tubes, and then their turn 3 was they played Fighters for Freedom, you played this, and then when you roll around, you've got initiative, right? If you eat the Benthic, because it doesn't say combat damage dealt to this unit when it's attacked, it's any time, right? So you could eat the Benthic, you effectively become a 4/2, and now the Fighters for Freedom would also die running into it. So if you eat smaller things, your attack power goes higher, and then you trade up into better things. And that's really, really helpful when you're trying to be defensive in this game, because a lot of times what's happening, at least right now in set 1, is you might play like a Cell Block Guard, but if they have, again, Fighters for Freedom or an Ezra or something that's just a bigger stat line, does you no good. So I really like this card because it benefits people who understand that like taking value trades is important, and I think that that's what Moff Gideon wants to do anyway, but this just rewards it even further.
Yeah, if you think about it, this pairs really well with Moff Gideon's ability to begin with too, where it's like, especially on his flipped side, where he gives everything overwhelm and +1, so it lets you do that trade even better. And presumably you're going to trade in a way where this lives, like you're just talking about, and so you're going to be able to, buff it more, get even more overwhelm damage through, keep Moff Gideon safe. So yeah, you can see why this is another one of the starter cards in this deck, right? Where it's very specifically designed to work well with Moff Gideon, because it does.
Tarkin's looking at it and being like, "Soon, my pretty, soon." All right, let's move on.
Hey, real quick though, did you know that we mentioned disabling Fang Fighter? You realize too that card is a Mandalorian ship, right? It's even got the keyword Mandalorian on the ship. So the signs were there all along. Mandalorian's an upgrade.
You weren't paying attention. It was there the whole time. All right, let's go to the next one, and possibly one of the most fascinating of the new ones because it involves a new keyword. This is a card called Wanted, and it is a 0-cost cunning upgrade, +0/+0. It is a bounty. It is a condition. I think bounty's new, but condition, I'm not sure if that's the first time that we've seen a condition. I'm not sure, but ultimately the text,
I don't think of any others.
Text reads as such: attached unit gains keyword bounty. Bounty ready to friendly resources. And basically it says when this unit is defeated or captured, its opponent collects its bounty. So you drop this on an opposing unit, and then when you kill it, you get the bounty for it. And in this case, the bounty is to ready to resources. Charmer?
Or captured.
Or captured. That's where I wanted to go with this, which is great. First of all, what I love about the artwork on this is that the dude is pulling a full-on Shaggy, it wasn't me, because there's clearly a holographic, like a hollow image of his face with the bounty and the fact that he's wanted. He's like, what are you talking? I don't know this guy. I don't know this guy. But still, the fact that we are doing the fun stuff that you, myself, the three of us have talked about, the cool stuff that we miss from Star Wars CCG, we're getting it now. I forgot which one of the two of you it was, but I know that I loved blowing up the Death Star, and one of you loved capturing and feeding stuff to the Sarlacc. That was, I think, Doa, right?
Well, I like carbon freezing people.
Oh, right. You
And I fed people to the Rancor.
Oh, the
in
Rancor.
Jabba's palace. You drop them through the pit. Yeah, I used a Johto cast to catch people and feed them to the Rancor. That was my
Both
gimmick.
require capturing, though. You are right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, how do you guys feel about this? First of all, the bounty mechanic I think is great because baked into the rules, the fact that you can respond to things like this, I think is cool. But at the same time, if you put a wanted poster on somebody, if you play wanted on them, it's a situation where a lot of the times when you're playing this game, if you feel like your unit is threatened or is not long for this world, you'll just sack it into something. But you can't do it with this anymore. Like, this makes it less appealing of an option.
I love this card, and I love everything that it also infers. So, first of all, I love this card because being that it's in cunning, it is also a very cunning move to spend 0 resources to just effectively pass without passing, right? Like, you're putting this on an opponent's unit saying, all right, now what are you going to do? So you can kind of use this to buy time. But you can also use this to set up combo plays, right? We were just talking about the calculated lethality that obviously very clearly interacts with wanted, where you play this on an opposing unit, you destroy it. That's an upgrade that is feeding you experience tokens. But I also like that this is something that kind of mucks up Palpatine decks. I know that's going to be hard for all 3 of us to hear because we love playing Palpatine, but having this thrown on one of your units means that you're less likely to sacrifice it and draw a card with Palpatine. But the biggest thing for me is the Chekhov's gun, because I know we've talked about those in the past, of the bounty mechanic. The reminder text is simply explaining what happens or what's required for you to collect a bounty. So all of the text after bounty is specific to this card, which tells me we're going to get more than one type of bounty, and that's what I'm looking forward to. This one is, you ready to resources, but what is the other ones? Am I drawing cards, getting experience tokens, getting stuff from the discard pile? Like,
healing your base?
The sky's the limit. Right. So I love everything about this because of what it represents, but also what it infers for the future.
Well, I believe Danny was saying on the podcast, or not the podcast, on the stream, the developer stream, that there were going to be multiple ones with different abilities and things too. So yeah, I think we can expect that and get excited about it. But this kind of thing, this particular card fits so well into just like Boba Fett too, right? Where it's like suddenly now you have the potential to ready 4 resources after killing something on your opponent's side or capturing it. Like there can be some pretty disgusting things happening, I think, with Boba Fett with this, not to mention all the other things that are going to be available for the Mandalorian and others. But yeah, I think it's a really neat mechanic. I mean, it's a cool way to sort of like get to do a Star Wars-y kind of thing, which Flake kind of mentioned. Like, I think that's something that we all loved, those of us that were really into the old Decipher Star Wars collectible card game, is that the game just felt very Star Wars-y when you were playing it. The deck you were playing, you felt like you were getting to accurately play out a particular Star Wars fantasy, right? Whether that was making an army of Jawas, or, freezing someone in carbonite, right? Or feeding someone to a Rancor. Like, you could do all that stuff in the game. It was great. Doing a trench run to blow up the Death Star, So this feels like it's in that vein where it's like, yeah, I can play Boba Fett. I can put bounties on things and go collect them and get a reward for that. It's a very cool Star Wars-y kind of thing. But in a gameplay sense, you both kind of touched on it, where it's like, this is a way to really mess with your opponent's sequencing too, where it's like they've got a unit, they would love to trade into one of your units because it's a better thing for them. You slap that bounty on it, and it's suddenly like, now what am I going to do? I don't want to attack in with this unit anymore, even though I'm afraid of what's going to happen if I don't. So you kind of put them in these catch-22 situations, and so I think there's going to be a lot of really neat strategic play around when and where to place these bounties too. So I just love the depth of complexity and tactical decision making it adds to the game that wasn't there before, because we didn't really have cards that did this kind of thing. So yeah, I think it's great. I think it adds to the game complexity wise in a good way, depth wise, strategically. It's fun in a Star Warsy sense. So yeah, I think if the other things kind of look like this, it seems like kind of a home run kind of a mechanic.
Upgrade defeating cards, stock rising, because this is an upgrade. So they play this, you play Confiscate, you're good. You play this, they play this, you play Disabled Fang Fighter, you're good.
I mean, maybe you're just out there playing aggression and power failuring yourself, you know?
I've never found a time in my life where I've wanted to power failure myself, but it might be on the horizon, man. It could be there.
Ponytail stuck in the garbage disposal.
Oh, that's
We've all seen that happen in a horror
all the
movie,
time.
yeah.
All the
Power
time.
failure. Yeah.
True story.
We know it's hanging back there. No one can see it, but Flake has a glorious braided ponytail.
You just have like 2 more weeks, right? You got your Padawan test coming up?
Yeah, that's correct. Right. Yeah, I wanted the douchiest rat tail possible so that I could go there and be denied Jedi Master status. True story about
young Flake.
15-ish years ago, when I was living back in Montreal, the Quebec government had a ad campaign about workplace safety. These, you could Google these, you could check them on YouTube. These videos were like 30-second ads that you didn't know what it was because the first time you see it, we would be at my friend's place, all in the basement like we would once or twice a week, watching a hockey game, and then barely paying attention to the commercials. And then they'd have this thing where somebody was working in a factory, another where they're just messing around, and all of a sudden the dude's sleeve gets caught in the thing. And then his arm goes through it. But you'd think that they would cut away from the actual carnage. No. You got to see the dude's arm get busted up and his fingers go. And we're like, I remember watching this for the first time with my friends. We're like, what the hell did we just watch? And then this was pre-Twitter, so nobody could be outraged. But the next day at school or talking to friends or doing whatever, like, you guys see the game? Did you see that commercial? They had like a series of like 5 different ones, and everybody, it was like, it made the news. They're like, is this what we want? And they're like, you're talking about it. We're like, yeah, I guess you're right. So sorry to go on that tangent, but you are correct.
No, that's fine. I also
those were all great.
am scarred by Final Destination, so
that was it.
I worked. There was a point in my life after college where things weren't going great job wise, and I found myself working in multiple factories and temp jobs and things. And you would always get. It was awesome. I always look forward to this part of it where you always got to sit down for a day and watch all these like training videos, and it was all this like hilarious like bad special effect gore and violence and stuff with all this like stuff happening. And sure, I played it safe out on the factory floor, but those videos were always incredibly entertaining to me.
It's like wear a helmet, directed by Wes Craven. It's like, wow, how did that happen?
When's the Hellraiser guy show up? You know,
who wants to do the next one? Because I don't have an emergency pack. So
Razor Crest is the next card.
Exciting.
This is a space unit. 4-cost heroism vigilance, has Mandalorian vehicle and transport as the tags. 3/4 stat line, restore 2, but also when played, you may return an upgrade from your discard pile to your hand. So again, that upgrade synergy. Obviously, this works very well with the wanted card that we were just talking about. If you're playing Mandalorian, you can give somebody a bounty, and then after you collect it, you give somebody else a bounty after you've played your Razor Crest. I dig this for the simplicity because it just kind of does all the things you want it to do.
Yeah. What do you do after you collect a bounty? You get in your ship and you fly off to go look for another one. So when the ship appears, you get your equipment back again, you're restocking and all that. So I think it's, again, like thematically really great. Restore 2 on a 4-cost is interesting. I know we've got like Yoda out there. Is he 3 or 4? I'm trying to remember.
He's 3.
Yeah, he's 3. So, but we don't see a lot of lower costed, like less than 5 costed units with restore of more than 1. So I think that's pretty significant. In that this is going to be an annoying ship to deal with. It's got 4 health, which is kind of usually a pretty decent break point, especially in space in the game right now. And so you'll be able to get, I think, a good amount of sustainability out of this too. So it's a neat little unit, all things together. It does neat things, and the Restore 2 really kind of sets it apart, I think, from other similarly statted ships right now.
Well, I think the patrol craft is a vigilance craft that's a 3/4 sentinel, and I think this just kind of blows it out of the water in terms of what you want it to do. Yeah, I think
it is unique. So you can only have one out.
That's fine.
Something to think about at least.
I don't think I've ever had 2 patrol crafts out at a single time.
I know, but it's something
Sure.
worth mentioning.
No, that's definitely a part of it. But again, it's Mandalorian. It restores 2. It has some space presence, but like we said, it just kind of plays into the whole. Let's get those bounties back, and I think that's important. And I think that this is a ship that it's going to be in the starter deck, or it's from the starter deck. But I think that this is going to find itself in what I think is going to be heroism, vigilance, cunning. I think that is going to be an archetype that people are going to be playing with, because vigilance, like we mentioned earlier on today, has a lot of point, click, delete cards. And how are you going to collect bounties? Drop a bounty on it and then vanquish it, or drop a bounty on it and then take down, or calculated lethality, whatever the hell you need it to be. Not to mention, if you calculate lethality on something with a bounty, you get an experience token. It's like you get extra juice out of it. So I like this.
Can I just take this moment to make an appeal to whoever is making the Mandalorian TV show? Because I know they watch. I know they watch the podcast,
They do.
Or at least
Oh,
I'm reasonably
fans.
sure that they watch. Yeah, I would imagine they do. Why wouldn't they? Can we have the Razor Crest back? I know it blew up or whatever, but like, can he get another one maybe? Because like the Naboo Starfighter, like, sure, that's kind of cool and all that, but like Grogu is a growing Yoda thing, whatever. He's a growing Yoda guy, and he is going to outgrow that tiny little bubble on the top really fast. I mean, the Razor Crest had a lot of room, and I mean, who wouldn't swap to the van, right, from the sports car? Like the Mandalorian went the opposite direction when he had a kid, right? Usually you go from like the fast car to like the bigger vehicle. I had to trade in my GTI for an SUV because the car seat wouldn't fit, right? But the Mandalorian, a little bit of irresponsibility, I think, going from the van. It was destroyed, I'll give him that, but to a sports car essentially in the Naboo Starfighter that was modified. So I think we got to get the Razor Crest back. It's such a cool ship design too. Like the profile of it looks so Star Wars. I've always loved the Razor Crest, so I hope we can get one back at some point in the show. Please do it for me and all the dads driving vehicles that are bigger than the ones they would prefer to drive out there.
It's interesting because you mentioned the whole dad thing, but one could argue that the smaller Starfighter is a good representation of him shifting his priorities, because he had all that extra space before because he was a bounty hunter, right? He had all of his tools. He had to have like a hold for prisoners to bring back, or whether they're frozen or whatever.
And a toilet.
And now he's just on dad duty, right? He doesn't need his work truck anymore. So
fair enough.
It's weird, right? But I can actually kind of see why this evolution makes sense. But I also agree. I loved the Razor Crest, and if it's not that, I would still like another ship, something a bit more unique.
I'm just worried that this is like Din Djarin going through a midlife crisis here. I'm just concerned with his mental well-being.
And he goes back to like the scrap lady, and he's just like, "Yeah, Gemma, cold air intake on this. I want this thing to really hum when I buzz the tower in Jawa country."
What he needs is, right now he's driving the Corvette with the booster seat, but he's going to switch to a Subaru. But since this is Star Wars Unlimited, he needs a Swoobaroo.
I hate you. I knew you were going there.
I like a second before you said it, I was like, oh boy, he's gonna say it. But
no,
he needs a Subaru. Yeah, all-wheel drive, very safe in all conditions.
I was asked this past weekend if I can get any other car, or if I can get a brand new car, what would it be? And I said 2024 Corolla. Like, I drive an 06 now. Why wouldn't I upgrade? This car's great.
The hatchbacks are pretty nice.
They're beautiful. Dude, they're amazing. They have Corolla SUVs now. Did you know that? Yeah.
Which seems
I saw it on The Price is Right this morning. So I did some Googling.
I've done Toyota commercials. You know that?
What?
Yeah, for when I was doing Overwatch League, Monty and I did a couple. I was on 3 Toyota commercials actually, 2 with Monty and 1 with Zoe. Yeah.
You can absolutely send me the links to those. And
I never got a car.
Well,
I never gave them. I'll send you the links. We can put them out there. But,
they will circulate. How about this?
I got this out of it, but it was fun.
Okay, so here's what we'll do. Just the first person who in the chat in the Discord who @Doa and says, "Show me the Carfax." He'll put the link in there, but I'm not going to do it. So the first,
I don't know if I'm going to be that attentive to the comments, but I'll try.
I'll pay attention.
Okay.
I'll poke at you. Send me the link, and
I'll send you links.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to the next one. Doe, you want to get the next one?
Yeah, it's another upgrade. This time, it's the Mandalorian's rifle. I like it, which is a disintegration kind of rifle. I don't remember the exact technical term for this gun, but it's a Mandalorian's rifle, so that's all we need to know. It costs 3. It's a heroism upgrade attached to a friendly non-vehicle unit, of course. When played, if attached unit is the Mandalorian, he captures an exhausted enemy non-leader unit. So this is something, there's a little bit of capturing in set 1, right? If I'm right? Yeah, there's, I think. But then we put the captured card face down under him until he leaves play. So they already clarified too, this removes all damage counters and all upgrades. So essentially, if it does escape the Mandalorian, it goes back to the vanilla version of the card it was originally. But it's pretty neat. Pay 3, temporarily grab something, you get 3 attack from it. No extra health, so it doesn't make it any easier to keep it. But yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be something fun to do, to just temporarily grab some units. It turns Din Djarin, turns Mandalorian into a what, 7/7 when you add this upgrade on him. So it makes him quite large. So yeah, I think it's just a cool addition to the Mandalorian upgrade repertoire.
It's filthy. This thing is absolutely filth nasty, and here's why. It's because you flip the Mandalorian, and then your opponent's always thinking, what do I attack with? Because this thing has no cost restriction, no health restriction, no nothing. It's just that if you flip the Mandalorian and they came at you with some really nasty stuff, you just drop this on your boy, and that thing is now gone. And then you have a Mandalorian, like you said, which is a 7/7 that you can then swing with. It's gross because their biggest, nastiest thing is now Gonzo. Again, it has to be exhausted, but there are other cards within Cunning that exhaust things as well for fairly cheap. No Good to Be Dead, for example, is a card that'll keep him exhausted into the next turn as well. So there are definitely options. My question here is, can you capture a spaceship?
Yeah, absolutely, because it doesn't say ground unit.
Non-leader.
You can capture a Star Destroyer if you're the Mandalorian. and you get your rifle. You can.
He can become a pirate and steal your ship.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But
That's
just
how
in
he
his
gets
back
the
pocket.
Naboo starfighter.
AT-AT. Yeah.
I would very quickly
Totally
like to
can.
point out that when you deploy the Mandalorian, your opponent should actually instead be thinking, I need to attack with my best unit. I'm about to lose it. Because the Mandalorian very conveniently says, when you play an upgrade, you exhaust an enemy unit with 6 or less remaining HP. So when you play the rifle, if their thing is ready, it better be huge, or he's still capturing it either way. And I love that flavor. I think that's fitting because really, from watching the show, it needs to be something huge. It needs to be like a crate dragon for him to not deal with it right away. So I love that the two combo together so well. And I also really, really think that this is better than it looks, specifically when you're playing it on the leader, because you can't waylay a leader, right? All the tricks that you would use to easily deal with a unit, you really can't use them with the Mandalorian because he's a leader. Takedown, you got to hit him first, right? He's got more than 5 health. Vanquish doesn't hit him, Waylay doesn't hit him, all of those things. So this is a really powerful tool when you're playing the Mandalorian as your leader.
This thing is gross. Also worth noting that, like you said, within the rulebook, triggers are stacked the way that you want them to be stacked. And part of this discussion actually arose because somebody in the Facebook group was talking about how somebody energy conversion labbed a rook, attacked with it, killed something, and then ordered the layer of triggers so that the shield came on after the attack occurred. So they got to attack, kill a unit, and then put the shield on it after the fact, which the dude is like, this feels illegal. And everyone's like, that's just creative bookkeeping, baby. That's a creative accounting when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah, no, totally legal. It's because they're both simultaneous things that happen. So as the active player, you're the one who gets to choose the order in which they resolve. So that is the truth. The question that I kind of had is like, Did we see all the starter cards from Moff Gideon's side? Because so far that's 3 out of the 4 starter leaders that have their signature weapon too. Because we had Vader and Luke's lightsabers, now we've got the Mandalorian's rifle. You know, Moff Gideon doesn't really have a signature weapon per se. And don't say the dark saber.
I'm not saying it's a signature weapon, Doa, but he did.
No, but you can't give Moff Gideon the dark saber. Come on, like that does not belong to him, both in a story sense and also I think in a card game design sense. But I think, funny enough, I think the Phase 3 Dark Trooper fills that. Because
that's why I tilted my head. I was like, kind of really, like his weapon is the Dark Troopers, right?
I guess that is it, isn't it? Yeah. So that I think you're probably right. I think that card probably fills that type of space for him in the deck.
Open your mind.
I was just thinking about that.
Open your mind. What if it's just like a crappier version of the Darksaber? Like there's the Darksaber in the right hands might be more powerful than the Darksaber that's just kind of being passed around like it's at a Bob Marley concert or something. Like
the poorly used Darksaber, huh?
Yeah. Darksaber,
but you don't know what to do with it. Yeah. I don't think
Kirkland brand Darksaber, yeah.
We have Darksaber at home.
All right, Charmer, you want the next one. So
I do.
Have at
this card is so good. I love it. So from the starter deck, we have Gideon's Light Cruiser. Now, don't let that fool you. There's nothing light about this hefty bad boy. This is an 8-cost villainy space unit. It has a 7/8 stat line. Imperial vehicle capital ship for the tags. Has the overwhelm keyword. So you're already getting a 7/8 overwhelm in space, which is fantastic. But when played, if you control Moff Gideon as a leader or a unit, you can play a villainy unit that costs 3 or less from your hand or discard pile for free. So you can bring back your best unit that died earlier. You can surprise them with something they haven't seen from your hand. Again, it's any villainy unit. So if you've ran into Darth Vader recently, you know how powerful that is because that can find you Boba Fett and who knows what else coming in this next set. This is... Whenever I look at cards that are overcosted, I look for things that have an immediate impact, right? It's a big reason I'm so big on Darth Vader because he gets you another unit and he has ambush, right? Huge immediate impact. If you're going late game, cards like the Avenger where, yeah, you get the big body, but you also get something right away. This card gives you a big body, but also something else right away so that if somebody does load up the Vanquish and they get rid of this immediately, you still have value, right? This card I am a huge fan of because it's just villainy, so it can go in a lot of different decks, especially those command decks where you're trying to ramp. In the Moff Gideon deck, for example, we know that 3 or less units are really important. We've already talked about some that were revealed here, like the Dark Trooper, but also Death Troopers, right? That's a great card. It comes into play. It gets to shoot something. There's so much that this does that I think that you really like. This is an auto include if you're playing Moff Gideon as your leader because you always get the value. But I feel like we're going to get a Moff Gideon just regular unit. And if you're running that, you might consider running this in your deck as well.
Yeah. I don't have a ton to add to that. I think you hit all the points that need to be hit with it. I think it's just it's a great ship. It fits in with all the other kind of signature ships, I think, like Fett's Fire Spray that benefit from having that Boba Fett out as a leader or a unit. So I think it's neat. Again, one of the most fun things in Star Wars is pairing characters with their signature ships or weapons and things like that. So I think this fits in well with that. It's just cool to see.
What I don't like
that exists.
I'm just upset that this is in the starter deck and you're not going to be able to get like a hyperspace version of this because it's going to look incredible in hyperspace.
Well, organized play.
Organized play, right. It's going to be beautiful, but I'm just like, for example, like there's that other villainy card that it's like attack with an Imperial or an Imperial does its damage and another Imperial does its damage.
Maximum firepower.
Firepower. That card, it looks completely different in hyperspace because it is a like light colored background, like Hoth related thing with a very dark, the contrast is there. When you remove the contrast of the border, it looks completely different. And that's what I'm getting from Gideon's Light Cruiser. I think it's going to look gorgeous.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Next up, I want to do the next one if that's cool. And
yeah, go for it.
Okay. This is definitely the focal point of most people's conversation.
Most talked about.
Yes,
for sure.
for reasons, which we're not gonna. This isn't for us to talk about, but we'll.
You know what we're talking about. We don't need to have that conversation.
Correct.
Here, I suppose.
It is a 2-drop ground unit called Grogu, and he is so irresistible. He is cunning, and boy is he heroic. 0 attack, 5 health for a 2-drop. Force is the tagline beneath it, and it says, action, you may exhaust this unit to exhaust an enemy unit. That's your action for this little dude. So it's basically a I do nothing, you do nothing kind of thing. It's a stall tactic, but it's meant to basically just freeze out a lot of the major bigger threats as they appear. And as a 2-drop, it is resilient against attack. It is not going to really... It's not going to die to open fire. It's not going to die to anything that comes down on the 2-drop as well. It's going to take some problems. I think that this is a card that is like, people are going to talk about this as being people are already going to be pissed off about cunning, and now they have this to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind that it says exhaust an enemy unit, not exhaust an enemy non-leader unit. So this can exhaust leaders as well. So he's a major threat. And the 5 health is what kind of scares me more than anything, because I'm picturing like I play Grogu on turn 2, and then I just put a Jedi lightsaber on him the next turn. And then he's a 3/8, and I can be like, well, so I've got this 3/8 juggernaut baby Yoda, or I can just exhaust a unit. Whatever happens to be better at the time. He's suddenly outside of the range of takedown, and like it's So I think with upgrades specifically, Grogu can get pretty terrifying. You can waylay him, sure, you can vanquish him, but man, he's a sticky little dude to get on your side of the board. I think he's gonna be hard to remove. Dude. I think a lot of people are going to be cursing the name. See, I think what happened here is everyone fell too much in love with Grogu. Everyone fell too much in love with Baby Yoda. And they were like, we need to make people hate Baby Yoda. And so we're going to give him this card. And so now the Baby Yoda, Grogu, will be a curse on the lips of Star Wars Unlimited players as he exhausts all their favorite things. But it's a spicy card. I'm looking forward to seeing how it all played out. He is a terror.
he is an absolute terror, because not only, as you said, is he hard to get rid of, and he's free to tap down, whatever the opponent's best unit is, but also just having him like in your pocket. We always talk about how this game gives you areas where you can respond, right? Windows of opportunity where like I do something and then my opponent has like one chance to respond. This is a great way where if they're trying to set up some combo where you're just like, okay, well, I'm going to tap down that unit, right? Or somebody's going in for a lethal by readying a unit out of, a surprise moment or situation or whatever. And you're just like, actually, no, once again. But outside of those things, as somebody who's been trying to make Chewie work, I looked at this and I was like, worst case scenario in Chewbacca, this is like a very cheap 0.5 wall for a turn, which is also very, very relevant, because not only do you hopefully slow down quite a big chunk of damage, but then if he survives, he still retains value after the fact in his ability to tap things down. So I really like him. If you're playing Vigilance, Cunning, Heroism with the Chewbacca leader, I think that's also a nightmare.
I mean, he kind of functions as like 5 extra health on your base to a certain extent too, because they need to respond to this. Like this is a card that you can't just let sit there. So either it like takes a card out of your hand, or out of their hand as removal, or it requires 5 damage worth of attacks, or from some source that would have otherwise been put in your base. So yeah, it is kind of like extra health too. I
also really like that he has such a good synergy with so many other existing cards just because he has the Force tag. Mm-hmm. So there are a number of cards in that Chewbacca list I'm running. There's a number of cards that I'm running specifically because of the Force tag. So him turning that on means that you're, the Force, I'm one with the Force is with me, right? Like that card is online if you just have Grogu sitting around, and it's terrifying, right? The other nice thing about him having this Force tag or whatever is that a card that I've been trying to make work and I've had mixed results with because I think it just needs more support. It didn't have it in set 1, but I think it's really powerful once it comes online, is it binds all things. And I think Grogu is going to be the nightmare for that, because if you don't take Grogu out all in one shot, if somebody has, a 3/3 and a 2/2 and they swing in with that 3/3, well, now I can heal my Grogu back to full and nuke your other unit. Nice try, right? Like, you've wasted all your attacks this turn and done nothing. So yeah, I think he's going to be really annoying as the real one.
I'm looking at this and just reiterating the fact that, okay, in villainy, I'm going to play Palpatine. I still like Palpatine. Nothing's pulled me away from that. But from the heroic side, I'm just looking at cunning, heroism, vigilance. I'm looking at all these cards coming up, and I'm like, yeah, speak to me, baby. Speak to me. I want to be the most annoying person at the table that day. That's kind of what I want. And all the pieces are there. And like you said, Doa, like, all right, turn 1, Grogu, turn 2, lightsaber, turn 3, what you got? Like, what? You can't even hurt my feelings at this point.
Force is with me.
Oh.
2 experience points and a shield.
Yeah.
And the attacks. You're swinging for 5, and he's got a shield token. And because of the Jedi lightsaber, you're also giving their unit -2/-2. So you're theoretically doing like 7 worth of damage to a unit. Yeah.
Can we just go back to earlier when we were talking about calculated lethality and how important it was to kill something at 3 or less cost? Because what you just described, Doa, when you're like, yeah, it's turn 1, Grogu into the lightsaber, into the forces with me. Like, yeah, that sucks for like me. But then if I have a unit that can get the experience tokens, hitting it with the lethality and then getting, 3 experience tokens back, 1 for the lightsaber, 2 for the experience, like there is a bit of a shift there. It's not lost on me that those 2 cards are being printed in opposite starter decks.
Oh God, yeah.
Probably for a reason.
You gotta have the balance. Yeah, you gotta have something to balance it out. But there's still gonna be a lot of games, I'm sure, where Grogu's just gonna get out of control. And be like, Grogu. But,
yeah.
And as if we didn't have enough Grogu support.
Oh, well, hold on a second. One quick thing. I want to know if anybody looked at calculated lethality and just the angle of the art and thought about that Principal Skinner meme where he's just like pathetic. Like, that's kind of,
I just think it's obvious he's aiming at Grogu. That now we know who he's pointing the
for
blaster
sure.
At.
Yeah.
He's down there.
Okay.
Who else is that short in the Star Wars universe? Like, I don't know, Salacious Crumb, Yoda, Babu Freak.
Babu Freak must be protected at all costs.
Okay.
All right, hit us with the last one, Doa.
All right, sure. So the last reveal we got from the stream the other day was none other than the Mandalorian himself. Wherever I go, he goes is the subtext. Also the motto for like the My Buddy, plush toys in the 90s, if you remember that. I don't know.
My Buddy and me.
You remember? Yeah, exactly.
I do remember this. Yeah.
That was the prequel to the Mandalorian. Who knew? So he costs 6. It's vigilance, heroism for a 5/6 Mandalorian bounty hunter. Has Sentinel, and when played, you may heal all damage from a unit that costs 2 or less. How much does Grogu cost again? And give it 2 shield tokens as well. So clearly, tailor-made to keep Grogu safe, which is great thematically, but oh my goodness. If Grogu lives that long, though, because there's a big gap between 2 resources and 6 resources, but still, if he lives that long, he's
tapping stuff down to survive that long, though. I'm just looking at those 2 shield tokens and saying that's more stuff that I'm getting with my calculated lethality.
That's true. You're not wrong. Yeah. There is an answer.
Oh, man. The fact that you mentioned it, yeah, it's a little bit down the road at 6 cost, but in terms of like legendaries and impact of legendaries, 6 is relatively cheap for a fairly impactful card. And like you said, if that Grogu survived this long, you're probably in a good spot. Beyond that, now you're in a winning spot. This is kind of where you put it down, and I feel like you have to be building a little mini Yoda Iron Man when you're doing this, because you have to. It's not just about keeping him alive, but he has to do work other than just tapping to freeze things. I think that is sort of almost like a stall tactic while you're building him up and while you're surrounding and insulating him. I think that once the Mandalorian comes in, you're kind of rescuing him if he's got damage. You're beefing up with the 2 shield tokens, but if he's just a 2 shielded 0/5, that's not the threat. The threat isn't that he's going to freeze something out. You have to do something with him, or he's got to be annoying enough that the other stuff that is supporting him is getting work done. I think that just this 2-card combo isn't enough, But once we started sort of theory crafting, like, oh, jam a lightsaber on him, jab more upgrades on him. The premium on upgrades, the premium on upgrade destruction, the premium on removal is going to be huge. So this all plays into what Star Wars U has been, which is lots of fireworks, lots of back and forth, a lot of this hits the board, now it's gone. This hits the board, now it eats this and that eats that, like fast-paced action. So liking it.
Me too. I think it's cool. I like the art. Very action-packed. Yoda saving action, or Baby Yoda saving, or Grogu. We gonna call him Grogu. People still call him Baby Yoda.
Yeah,
because he is technically a baby of whatever species Yoda is. We never quite found out.
Well, that's why. And then they asked him. They're like, "Oh, it's that Baby Yoda. Is he hanging out with the bounty hunties?"
That's right. That's what he does. Bounty hunties. That's they've done a lot of like kids shows in the Star Wars universe. Young Jedi Adventures or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Bounty hunties is the underworld of Star Wars, but for kids.
When Yoda took all those Jedi Padawans to go find their kyber crystals, he says he imparted them with the knowledge of avoiding the bounty hunties.
That's right. Yep. Much more for them guys. Yep.
All right. That does it for the spoilers, and frankly, the main discussion of what this episode was, which was digging into these cards and giving initial impressions. We have a lot of theory crafting. We have a lot of speculation to go, gentlemen, but so far, so good. For flavor, for the having the hamster on the wheel already doing overtime in our minds about what we can build with this stuff, and we've only seen 10 cards. 10 cards have we and some artwork. So there's 250 cards to go. Like, buckle in.
Well, we haven't even seen what Smuggle does yet. So that's kind of exciting too. They mentioned that on the live stream, that there's a third mechanic that they'll reveal later. So that'll be something to look forward to too.
It's also worth pointing out that a lot of these reveals, all but 2, are from the starters. So if the starter deck is like this lit, then what's the set like?
Mm-hmm. Oh, worth noting as well that the Mandalorian was the first legendary that we've seen.
Yes.
So.
Yep.
All right, Charmer, I'm gonna throw a small scenario at you here. We're playing on turn 2. Hey, drop a little Yoda action, a little Baby Yoda, a little Grogu onto the board. You drop whatever, it doesn't matter because it's garbage. I take initiative, no problem. Turn 2. Hey, I'm slapping a lightsaber on this clown shoe. You? What are you going to do about that? There's not much you can do. Maybe you put something big on the board. I kill your little dude. You do something. I take initiative. No problem. Turn 4. Hey, he's just getting bigger, badder, and nastier. Now we're at turn 6, and he's still on the board. He's got a lightsaber, bunch of tokens on him. He's got GameStop shares. He's got a house in the Hamptons now. Okay, and then I flip my leader. What do you have to say about that?
I was just texting my wife to come pick me up because I'm clearly done with this event. There's no way I'm recovering. I have a really bad feeling about this.
I got a bad feeling about this.
I have a bad feeling about this.
I've got a bad feeling about it.
Quiet.
It is, in fact, the Bad Feeling Mailbag. Every week we dig into the mailbag because you will always come up with good questions for us, and this week is no different. The mailbag is, you can hit us up on the Discord channel. That's where all of our questions this week have come from, but you can also email us at icecaveradio@gmail.com. So, Doa, you have been taking a vacation, clearly, because there's been no stress involved in anything you've been doing.
Complete relaxation for sure.
Yeah. So I'm going to put you to work here, putting you to task.
Oh boy.
You get to tackle the first question of your choice.
Let's see. Let's talk about. I haven't read through these yet. I'm reading through them really quick right now. I actually, let's just go with the first one. Sure. And this is a question about tournament play etiquette, which is, it's a little bit of a tough question to talk about, I think, but I think it is something we all run into at events here and there. Hopefully not at locals. because that would just be silly. But at bigger tournaments, you will run into these people. We all have. And so this person asks, just wondering how to ask someone to play faster when they're obviously and intentionally playing slow. It happened a lot at my last local. That blows my mind. Whoever that is does not understand the purpose of a local. And taking a game loss when you're about to win just hurts. Yeah, and what they're referring to is that if you end up going to time in a match of Star Wars Unlimited, both players end up getting losses, which feels bad. So unfortunately, there are people out there that when they realize they're going to lose or for whatever reason, they will intentionally play their turns very, very slow to get to the timer and then cause you both to have game losses instead of just them, which is very bad sportsmanship and obviously not in the not in the spirit of any sort of competitive play for any card game, especially not at a local when you're just there to test decks and have fun. Right. But this does happen in tournaments too, because the stakes are higher and people take it more seriously. But first of all, my opinion on this is that regardless of what happens, I would probably let the person running the local know that this individual is doing that so they can kind of keep an eye on them. And if this becomes a trend, then the store manager should talk to them and be like, hey, that's not really the kind of play we're looking for on these nights. Please change it up, or will I have to ask you not to come anymore? I think that's the first thing I would do. Outside of any personal interaction you would have with this player, let the manager know, because they would be interested to know that someone is making their events less fun. So yeah, definitely do that. In the game itself, I think there's absolutely nothing wrong from asking someone to play a little bit quicker. Be like, hey, I know you're thinking hard about this, but we're coming up on time. Could we go through a little bit quicker? There's nothing wrong with asking that. That's not being a jerk. That's not being confrontational or aggressive. You're just asking someone to, do what they should already be doing, right? And you can definitely tell when someone's legitimately having a hard time coming to a decision about their play versus just trying to wait out the clock. Like, you'll know after a couple games. Even if you're new to card games, I think you'll be able to pick it up pretty quick. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with just asking them to play a little bit quicker because you're coming up on time. Perfectly valid. Whatever they say, however they respond to that, that's on them. Most people will just speed up, because they were called out on it. They're not gonna push it any farther. I've never personally had anyone continue to try to play slow or, be aggressive to me towards that after I said that. As long as you're polite and diplomatic about it, usually people will just speed up. You'll be like, oh, they notice. Okay, I'm gonna speed up now. If they don't, if they become aggressive to you, if they start to, give you a hard time, then I would call over whatever judge again or store manager is there and bring it up to them. And obviously this is a situation that, we hope nobody has to deal with at events, whether they're, hyper competitive galactic championships or they're locals, but it does happen every once in a while. Those people are out there. And so, yeah, again, nothing wrong with just asking them to play faster as long as you do it politely. That's perfectly fine. And then if it becomes and then also let the manager know so that they can watch to see if this is a trend or not with this individual, and then they can deal with that. So that's my answer.
I've always thought about what the intent is or what the goal is in these situations. Because like you said, why are you doing this at a locals? Why are you slow playing at a locals? Because if your intent is to just sort of torpedo the whole match and have a double L because that person knows that they're not going, already that person has decided that it's better for two people to be unhappy than for one person to be unhappy. So already that person, their intent in that matchup is not to have fun. It's to... I need to feel better by comparison, or that regard. The simple answer here is, like you said, is the first thing you do is you need to politely communicate to them that they need to hurry up for the same consequence that they are at stake for. It's not like you're saying, "Hey, hurry up because I want to beat you so I can go grab a Coke." It's like, no, we need to resolve this game so that there is an actual result. And if they continue, then there's, like Doa said, go talk to somebody. But what I want to also put into people's minds here is that this is a player who will never ever have any success on the competitive scene because they will always lose their matches. If they're win condition is spite, they are going to go to time, they are going to take L's, and they will never see a day 2 of a tournament. They will never see a 4th round of a tournament because they will 0-3 drop every major tournament because they have decided that they want to be the thorn in the side. So if it's any consolation for this person who has decided to be, to approach the game in that capacity, that they'd rather just take the whole, turn the wheel and, veer it off a cliff for both of them, just know that that mentality is not conducive to any kind of success in the game, any kind of success in the community, and any kind of success in making friends at an event. So communication is always your best approach, and diplomacy, like you said, Doa, is so key in this, because you want to basically walk away from this like Teflon and say, I approached it correctly, I communicated clearly, I went through all the different channels that are appropriate, and now it's up to the person to decide what kind of person they want to be.
All right. I agree with everything that was said. However, I'm going to take 5 minutes, probably even less. It's going to be more like 3, to appeal to the sociopaths that might be listening. So if you are somebody who you're literally just saying, hey, what's in it for me? Well, most modern matchmaking systems, now granted, the folks at FFG have not come out and said exactly what tiebreakers are going to be and how they work and et cetera, but most modern matchmaking systems at some point take into account your opponent's win record as a tiebreaker. So if you're thinking like a loss is a loss, but at least they didn't win, well, no, because now your tiebreakers are also worse if you both lose. You need a victor to have on one side or the other to have a better chance. And this is in part what Flake is talking about. The idea of, hey, you can take a loss early and then rebound and still do well in a tournament, but you can't if you're also killing your tiebreakers, because you're already down a peg if you're losing early. And if on top of that, you're ruining your opponent's win record, you're that much farther behind, right? So you're just hurting yourself. So if you're somebody who you're like, hey, I don't really care about other people having fun because, I don't know, I was born with some sort of mental deficiency. That's fine, but you're hurting yourself in the process as well. And there's also nothing wrong with having a mental deficiency. Earlier, Flake said something about, I've never wanted to power down myself or whatever it was.
Power failure myself, yeah.
Yeah, power failure yourself. That's like a 2 or 3 times a day occurrence on my end. So I know what it's like.
Well, we love you.
I think something to keep in mind too is that like this opponent that you've got that's doing this, they built a deck, they showed up, they wanted to play. So something is causing them to play, in this way. And, it's not your job to psychoanalyze them and fix this, but, you can try to be, the friend too. And try to understand a little bit, it's like, are they frustrated with the deck they brought and they're just kind of taking those frustrations out like this? If you play quicker and you win, can you talk to them and maybe help them improve their deck? Are they a new player that's not quite getting it? They're not having as much fun as they thought they would, but they bought these cards, so they feel like they should go, So I think approaching it with sort of an attitude of we're both here, we both wanted to play. You have to be firm with this kind of behavior, but at the same time, you should be, as diplomatic and friendly as possible, right? Because at the end of the day, we want everybody to have a good time. And, and it's sad that this person, went to all the work of buying the cards, building the deck, coming to the event, and they're having this experience too, and they're, sharing that experience with other people. So something to kind of keep in mind too is that, we don't know why they're deciding to play that. And it could be a lot of different things. It could be that they are just that way and they just don't have a healthy approach to competitive card gaming. It could be that they got some really bad news and now they realize they played poorly in this match and they can't fix it and they're just angry, So always try to put the best connotation on things too when you run into situations like that. But it's a very long answer to this one question, but I think it's a good thing to think about.
Maybe they are slow playing to hide the fact that they are clenching due to a Chipotle emergency. And the moment this
why would
match
you
is
slow
done,
play then? Are you kidding me?
I was going to say, then you get out as fast as possible.
I have been in a scenario like that, and I have just been, okay, yeah, whatever, it's fine. It's cool, bye. Like, yeah, no problem. You win. It's like, I'll clean up my cards. You can keep them. It's fine. I don't need them. And also, points to Doa for also bringing up the fact that we all circumvented the compassion aspect of approaching them and being like, you're right. You never know what they're going through. If it's a reoccurring thing and you could tell that it's malicious, go through the steps. But who knows? I have played against players who have, like in Flesh and Blood, who have played for years, and they are just notoriously slow. And I'm not talking about the Brody Spurlocks of the world. I'm talking about just players who are not prolific pros who have played the game for a lot, but they just it sometimes the way that the gears for card games line up for us, it's, in the same way that I can't do, certain things out there, like I can't play an instrument or read music. Cards click for me. For other people, it's difficult. They might go home and, do Beethoven's Sixth, or I don't know what the hell that is, but they can't figure out the sequencing for what to play on turn
Movie
2.
about some dogs, right?
That's correct.
That's
yes.
what I was thinking of. I was like, oh, it's the Saint Bernard.
Beethoven's.
We're on the same. You got the My Buddy thing, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the movie with the Saint Bernard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That and Cujo.
Two different ones.
Two very different dogs.
Yeah. So watch Beethoven and
far
then
as we
watch
know.
the sequel, Cujo, when they finally realize that the dog is actually.
No one's ever seen Beethoven and Cujo in the same room. I'm just saying.
Listen, they were both wagging their tails in both movies. Like there are scenes in Cujo where he's wagging his tail because he's a good boy.
Sure.
Good at killing.
And then there's a movie called MVP, Most Valuable Primate, where they taught a monkey to play hockey. So listen, there's all kinds.
Is this after Dunstan worked at the hotel?
Dunstan checks in.
Dunstan checks in.
There's like a gorilla baseball movie too, isn't there? Where they teach a gorilla to like pitch really fast or something.
I know that there's a paratrooping elephant movie.
Yes, Operation Dumbo Drop.
Yeah.
There's so many.
God, we're old.
There was
too many animal movies.
So
There's too
many
animal
movies in like the 90s and early, like it was probably just the 90s where it was just like, okay, what have we not seen? Okay, we haven't seen a horse do ballet. Let's get it on screen, print it.
We
let's
haven't
go.
we haven't seen like a kind of a fantasy world of science fiction world of really really smart rats that escape a lab and like create a culture themselves in a field, and then one of them has to go on this like mystical journey and all that. Like I'm describing an actual animated movie that it's The Secret of Nim. It was based on a book.
I thought it was like then it becomes a chef.
I thought this was like a version of Air Bud that I had not seen.
Dude.
Yeah, the experiment scene was cut due to trauma for the market audiences.
Well, when I was talking with Jordan Kennedy and he was explaining to us like the evolution of like the Constitution or stuff like that, where he's talking about how they had to clarify that because something isn't explicit, like a right isn't explicitly written down, it doesn't mean that somebody does not have that right. And I was like, yeah, it's like when a dog plays basketball, if it's not in the rules, if it's not explicitly stated in the rules that the dog can't play, then clearly he can, right? He's like, no, you donkey, obviously. But yes, it's similar in the sense, but like the opposite, I was like, okay. All right.
Wow.
None of you have emergency packs? Yeah, we're all.
No.
I'm actually. I was texting Keith to say, hey, I need some emergency packs. So I will hopefully rectify that soon. But no, I don't have any. And honestly,
in LA.
I'm a little torn because we got some great mailbag questions, and I know that we've only got to the one, but the other two are related to events, and so I didn't know if we were going to save those for when we talk about events or.
Yeah, I think we can probably do that because a lot of these are tournament related, so we're going to probably carry some of these over. How about that?
We had a good answer to that first one, I thought.
Yeah,
great.
I think it's fair. We had a pretty fat episode. Let's go off on that. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Not that we don't like everybody else, but we will get to them in a future episode because we've already kind of we're well in the weeds on this one. Yeah,
I'm back. Yeah.
See, we've increased our host output by 50%, and as such, so has like the length of the podcast apparently. So
yeah,
I'll talk.
Been a bit since we've been together though. So
yeah, we missed each other.
It was fun.
All right then. Well, hey. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all, Star Wars Unlimited appropriate ages, that is an episode. That's episode number 42. I do want to also call attention to the fact that the Ice Cave Network is expanding with new content. Every Wednesday, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll have a new Hello There. And the first one dropped this past week, a conversation with Tyler Parrott, senior game designer. Next week, we've got a conversation with lead game designer, Danny Schaefer. And every week, we're going to try to talk to somebody else from the community, the people who are moving the needle within here. I know that there's other stuff brewing amidst you two as well in terms of more content. So keep it locked in here, as well as we've got merchandise coming sooner than you think, which is great, which is good stuff. Whew. Anything else you guys want to throw in before we roll tide and get out of here?
No.
I mean, there's plenty of stuff that I want to say, but I know that we're already long for this episode, so I will just keep it to myself.
Yeah. Maybe we do an addendum episode in the middle of the week, or we'll figure something out. I don't know. There's so much that we want to talk about. We got time. All right? Before we all power failure ourselves, we have time. All right, friends. Sure. Join the Discord. If you haven't already, please leave us a 5-star review on whatever platform it is. Those help us so much. Subscribe to the channel wherever you are. Yes, 5 fingers for 5 stars. Not 4 stars. Possibly 3, but 5 is okay.
We don't talk about 4 fingers.
We definitely do not talk about 4-star reviews. All right, Charmer. Oh my goodness, Doa, you are here for this. I have had to deal and babysit this guy for several weeks. I'm glad you're back. We're glad that you're listening. Join the Discord. Charmer, wisdom time. Drop it. Let's go.
May the 4 fingers be with you.